edition of the Kingston Community Radio Show. 331-9255 is our call-in number, broadcasting live from our studios here, 16 Lucas Avenue in Kingston, New York. Alongside of me is Supervisor Fred Costello from the town of Sorghitis. Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. Good morning, listeners.
Listeners and viewers.
Listeners and viewers. We have viewers, yeah.
We've had quite a few viewers the last few weeks. I've pulled it up a couple times on my phone. Speaking of my phone, I better silence it because you know.
Say viewers, there's opportunity for people to log in on YouTube and see us here in the studio. And it's an interesting way to listen to our show and enjoy our show and kind of, not that we're much to look at, though.
No.
And
I'm
actually,
slipping here because I didn't turn anything on here this morning. I got talking.
That's okay. I think they could hear us, though, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
They could hear us, and they could also see us. We couldn't hear us, but then who wants to hear us?
Exactly, right.
And we couldn't see us. Who wants to see us?
Exactly. So we came in with a little bit of daylight. Now at the time switched.
The time change, but now
it's depressing that it gets dark so early.
4:45. It's
pretty dark.
Yeah.
Pretty dark. And we'll go on this route till December, right?
Yeah, we got another month or so, another 5 weeks to go, and then we start going the other way, believe it or not.
There's a weird optimism to that, though.
Oh, yeah. Sure there is.
You start getting...
you see, it's noticeable by the time you get to the end of January, beginning of February.
Gets late a little bit earlier, and you start to feel optimistic about spring, but... we got a lot of holidays in front of us, so we don't want to go too quick.
No, and we don't want to wish time away because time flies way too
quick
fast.
enough on its own, for sure. But a lot of activity. I see you have a couple flyers there. The Legion's doing a second.
Yeah, I figured we'd get to announcements in a bit. Let's see, what do we got going on in Sorghitis? You got a meeting coming up on the Lower East Sopus?
We do, yep.
So I guess I thought the mayor was going to take care of it, and then Terry late yesterday afternoon emailed me to set it up, so I did that this morning.
Thank you.
And,
yep, we've so a lot of the community leaders on the Lower Sopus, Hurley, Marltown, Sorghitis, Kingston, Ulster, we've been meeting fairly regularly with the DEP, partially motivated by what happened last year during that December storm, which caused high levels of turbidity in the Lower Sopus. And out of those meetings came a lot of better understanding from, I think, all of us who participated in about the reservoir system, about what it does, why the folks that built the reservoir over 100 years ago and sited it in Shokan knew that turbidity would be a problem, and they designed it with two basins in anticipation of that. But the rains that we get now just overwhelm the engineering that they applied back then. So the DEP has some plans that hopefully will at least increase the flexibility on how the water is managed. But over the past 20 years or so, the DEP has become a partner in flood mitigation. I think folks who think back will remember when we had, I think it was Irene, where there was some really tragic flooding that occurred, especially in the town of Ulster, on Orlando Street and areas like that where homes were displaced entirely. We had a little bit of that in Sorghitis on Clip Finger, and Hurley Flats, and those areas were really impacted by that high water. So DEP since then has become a partner in flood mitigation, and we came up with this release protocol that allows them to create a void in the reservoir to absorb those heavy storms. The problem with that is there's a release protocol that goes along with it, and in instances where the West Basin is turbid, it creates an opportunity for them to dispose of that turbid water and not use alum, which is part of their mandate by the DEC. The point of using alum is it helps the turbid particles coagulate, and they'll settle out, but the accumulation of alum at the bottom of the Kensico Reservoir has become its own environmental crisis. So by dumping off the water and ultimately releasing it into the Hudson River and diluting it, that helps them avoid that problem with the DEC. The problem for all of us that live below the spillway is that we suffer the consequences of that turbid water. and we're working with them closely, and the DEC now, who's opened up the public hearing on the release protocol to try to mitigate the turbidity and still achieve the goals that I would say have been successful with flood mitigation. And they're going to come to Sorghitis, hold a public forum, and talk about in depth many of the things that I just touched upon. And I think for anyone who's interested and concerned about the turbidity or the flooding, hearing it from the DEP experts will be helpful in your understanding of the complexities of what the challenges are, and perhaps give you a better perspective on what we can do to try to mitigate it. For Sorghitis, the turbidity is a significant problem. One of the things that defines our community is when you come down 9W and cross the bridge as you enter into the village, and you look to the left and you see Barclays Pond, and that's a notable landscape feature. It was painted by Townsend with a very famous painting of it, and that falls into the Hudson River School of Art. And it was painted for a reason, because it is picturesque and beautiful, and that's a very important recreational opportunity for residents of Sorghitis who like to fish and kayak. And the reports from the fishermen indicate that the fishing population has diminished, and they believe that's the result of the warming water and the turbidity and the invasive species. Mayor Murphy and I and our boards have tried to institute protocols that will help us manage the invasive species, and I think from a quality of recreational opportunity, that's been absolutely successful. Whether we've been able to help restore some of that natural habitat or not, we don't know yet, but hopefully over time we'll get an indication as to whether the natural vegetation is coming back. But so there's a lot going in. I think this forum will be helpful. As we enter into the cold weather, the turbidity becomes even more difficult problem, because when the water's cold, the turbidity is less likely to settle out. The water becomes more viscous, and the turbidity lingers in the water longer. And as a result of that, we suffered those extended releases last year, where under the release protocol, they were dumping 600 million gallons a day, but it was the very brown, muddy water, and that caused a lot of stress and anxiety for those of us who are offended by that turbidity in the creek. So
now, I imagine that other towns here in Ulster County that border the Esopus, their officials will be attending this meeting?
Yes. Yep.
Now,
Supervisor Quigley and I work really closely on this. Mayor Noel's been working closely with us. Rich Parody's been a part of it. John Perry's been part of it. We're all, it's interesting. This kind of gave us a platform to work together. And I think in many ways, even though we haven't gotten an outcome that is satisfactory to manage the turbidity, we found a partner in working with the DEP. So let's hopefully this relationship will continue to grow and we can come up with some meaningful solutions. But yes, the answer is...
Now, when you mentioned a few minutes ago, by creating a void in the Esopus, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so the reservoir has a capacity of X billions of gallons. So by creating a void in that capacity, so if the capacity was 100 billion gallons, they will only allow it to fill up to 80%. So there'll be 200 million gallons of void in water. And that void will allow rainwater to come in without going over the spillway.
Okay, so there's not one could interpret
Yes.
like a void in the Esopus, a man-made void in the Esopus, but that's not the case.
No.
Okay.
Nope. So there's...
I didn't think so, but I wasn't...
I'm glad you asked that, because that's confusing.
I wasn't clear on it.
And I fell into using the language that we use, that they've kind of defined that by. But basically there's a...
But now that you explained it,
Yeah.
it makes all the sense in the world. And void is the right word, and it'd be 80%.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And that's what the protocol calls for. So there's a percentage of capacity that they do not realize. And the point of that is during rainy season, as we're going into now, that the reservoir has the capacity to accept water without spilling over the spillway. And that helps us with flood mitigation. Because, And it's a fairly complex system. There's a Hurley gauge and a Mount Marion gauge, and those gauges are influenced obviously by the water that the DEP is releasing, but they're also influenced by the natural watershed and Sorghitis of the Sauk Hill and the Beaver Hill and the Platic Hill dumping into the creek. So when those gauges hit certain heights, the DEP can control how much water they're sending us if that void exists, and they could send less. So then the natural watersheds of the Sawyer Hill can kind of run off without adding to water being sent to us by the DEP, and hopefully that keeps the flood impacts in the upper and lower Sopus and Sorghitis in check. And it's complicated because when we speak with the large group, the lower Sopus means all the communities below the spillway dam. When we're talking Sorghitis, the upper Sopus and the lower Sopus are basically defined by the Barclay Dam. So that causes a little bit of confusion when we're in the meetings, because we have to always, well, Mayor Murphy and I always have to qualify when we say lower Sopus. Are we talking about the lower Sopus where the marinas are, the exit into the Hudson River, or are we talking about the lower Sopus from the dam at the reservoir all the way down? Yeah. So,
yeah, that's an interesting point.
Same language,
Yeah.
two different meanings, but it's come a long way, and hopefully I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to improve our situation. I think there hasn't been a comprehensive study of the lower Esopus from the Shokan Dam down, and the impacts the elevated releases have caused, and if any, we don't know. And we also don't know what the impacts of turbidity had. There's observations that we think are connected, but the science hasn't been collected, and the data to support those observations doesn't exist yet. And, you're at the Esopus Bend, Steve has been there, and he's made a number of observations, and those sandbars historically have switched and changed, but the rate of the change at this point we think is disturbing breeding grounds for many of the animals that rely on those areas for turtles, the beavers, many others, a lot of fish in the spring. So we want to know what's going on. And that is a resource. All summer long, there's people kayaking up there, and historically that was a very appealing spot to go fishing. When it used to freeze, that was one of the first places people would ice fish, and it was one of the last places people would ice fish, because the cove by the bridge would get protection from sunlight in the morning and the afternoon, so it would stay cold there, and the ice would be thicker for significantly longer than other places. And on a weekend morning, it would not be uncommon to see 10 or 15 people out there ice fishing, and we don't see that anymore.
Yeah, because we don't get those kind of ice accumulations anymore, which, by the way, doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother me, but it's kind of like getting cake for dinner. It's great to have it, but it's bad for you.
Yeah.
I worry about but it's if for folks who've never been up there, it's really worth the time to either hike the Esopus Bend, or even better, just get in a canoe, a kayak, or some type of personal watercraft and paddle your way up to the rapids. It's hard to imagine that you are in the middle of two of the densest populated areas of Sorghitis and be on the Esopus Creek, because you feel like you're in a canyon somewhere out west, and it's flush with vegetation and wildlife and sheer cliffs that define the area, and then these kind of really welcoming sandbars where you could go and just kind of hang out and swim a little bit.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Yeah. And it's right, like a stone throw over the ridge is Barclay Heights, and a stone throw over the ridge the other way is the Village, and it's pretty amazing that you're there's that little oasis of tranquility right in the middle of it all.
You described it good, like you're in a canyon out west.
Yeah. Pretty incredible.
Well, we've got some announcements that we should get to. It looks like we've got quite a number, 5 or 6 here. You want to lead off?
Yeah, I can start. We got... fall concert dinner and dance, Sunday, November 21st, 2021. Hors d'oeuvres will be at noon, a concert at 1 p.m., followed by Castler Ripken smoked pork dinner. Dance music by Gregory and the Brewhouse Band. Reservations are strongly recommended by November 13th. To make a reservation, contact Alana at 845-339-5969 or Hildegard at 757-5135. You can leave a message at the hall, 845-338-3763. This will be held at the Kingston Manacor Hall on 37 Greenkill Avenue here in Kingston, New York. Proof of vaccination upon entry will be required, and masks. The entire event will be $40 per person. The hors d'oeuvres and concert only will be $20 per person, or you can come just for dance and dessert, and that will be $20 per person. Limited number of takeout dinners at $25 each. Those will be by reservation only, and you must pick them up between 4 and 4:30. No walk-ins, accepting cash or checks. So these folks do a real great job.
Yes.
And it's kind of nice.
Annual event.
Yep. Nice to
Good
see
to
them
see that back
to their
because I
regular
don't
schedule.
think, we didn't have that last year.
No.
And Lamry Hackett Post 72 up in Sorghitis, they're having their takeout turkey dinner. So if you want to get your appetite all set for Thanksgiving, 9-10 days prior to, the takeout turkey dinner includes mashed potatoes, obviously turkey, mashed potatoes, vegetables, stuffing, roll, cranberry sauce, and pie, all for the economical price of $16. Here's the thing. You need to register, or you need to reserve by today, November the 10th, by 9 p.m. this evening. And the pickup is next Tuesday on the 16th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. For reservations and information, call, text, or email Kevin Pendergast. You can reach him at 845-706-8083 or 845-246-9783. You may email Kevin at kpendergast@hvc.rr.com. And this is all being catered by Stone Pony, and the pickup dinner location will be at the Legion. And again, you need to reserve by this evening, 9 p.m. Pickup next Tuesday, November 16th, 4 p.m. to 6:30. And again, that's for Lamry Hackett Post 72 in Sorghitis.
They always do a great job.
They do.
And then also coming up, Friday, December 3rd, 6 to 8 p.m., the Uptown Kingston Snowflake Festival. The raffle will close on November 15th for kids under 12. Winners must pick up their bike at the festival. Helmets and locks will be provided by Bike Friendly Kingston. And this is made possible with a big thank you from the Catskill Hudson Bank, Berardi Real Estate, and BHHS Hudson Valley Properties. So this is co-sponsored by the Cuba Network, the Kingston Uptown Business Association. That's a fun event too.
Yes. And tomorrow, November the 11th, is Veterans Day. We need to take some time to pause and honor our veterans, especially those who gave of their lives so we can enjoy the freedom that we enjoy today. And as they do every single year, the American Legion Post 72 and the VFW Memorial Post, joint Veterans Day ceremony at 11 a.m. Leading the ceremony will be Jim Gage, who has done it for, I couldn't even guess how many years. And the Sorghitis Community Band is going to be back, and they will be performing. So you talked about the first one that you read. I remember last year it was
Hyphenated.
It was basically a virtual, this is again takes place in the Donlin Park. This is behind the American Legion home on 15 John Street, and after the ceremonies, well, there's going to be an open house for the public. There'll be food and refreshments for all guests, and the Veterans History Museum will be open for all guests. And if you haven't been to the American Legion Museum on the second floor of the Legion building, you need to take time to see it. They just have done, we talked about Bill Payne all the time, getting Bill back on this show. We've had him on previously. He just has done a phenomenal job with that museum. So again, Veterans Day ceremony, 11 a.m., Legion Post 72 in Sorghitis. Be there.
Yeah, you're cheating yourself if you don't spend a little time in that museum.
Yeah.
It really brings the history books home. You kind of get this firsthand experience and really can relate what we learned in our history classes and saw in the news to how that impacted the local community, and it's a really helpful perspective to share. All right, we have all are invited wreaths across of America. Sorghi's VFW Post 5034 is sponsoring a bus trip to Saratoga National Cemetery to remember the fallen, honor those who serve, teach our children the value of freedom by placing wreaths on the grave sites. This event will take place on Saturday, December 18th, 2021. It's $15 per person. It will leave from the Greco Senior Center at 10 a.m. and return approximately 5 p.m. We will have a cash lunch stop. To purchase more wreaths, the cost is $15 each. Checks can be made payable to the VFW Post 5034, P.O. Box 152, Sorghi's, New York 12477. For more information, you can contact Bob Howe at 845-246-8510. Don't say I should have, say I did.
Okay, that's great. We're starting to get lots of announcements in, and this is always good to see. So, Civic Organizations, Legion Post, VFW Post, please get us your information. It's free marketing, free advertising, and we'd be happy not only on Wednesday but the other days of the week. The hosts, excuse me. Also, I also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who throughout the day last Thursday pledged for the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund. And Lawrence just told me a bit ago before we got on the air, we're just under $70,000. So obviously we're sure to top that. And when all's said and done, we could very easily hit 80 by the time, I know I've got some more coming in, and I'm sure more will be coming in between now and Christmas. And then we have all the boxes at the various locations, at the banks, steward shops, the Kiwanis Ice Arena, and
so it's
very successful day. So
congratulations to you and Bob. You guys really crushed it.
Everybody did, everybody did. But Bob and I do put an effort into it. I mean, you're on my email blast. There's actually 5 different groups because years ago there was a limit to how many email addresses you could send to at one shot. I think that's out the window now.
So you just add as many as you like now?
Well, I know one of my groups has got almost 400. Another group has got over 300. And then the others, all total, it's about 1,100 that I email blast to.
Wow.
And, it's great to see every single year, and this was started 57 years ago now by Walter Maxwell, and the tradition has continued. And you stop and think of all the needy, all the children that have been helped here in Ulster County, because again, everything raised every single year over those 57 years stays right here in Ulster County, and also our seniors that are in need.
Yeah.
So obviously, we're going to do just what we did in previous years, but more. And it was so gratifying. I know when we walked into the studio between Bob and myself, we already had close to $5,000 in pledges, and the phones just kept ringing, and it was a great day. It's a very enjoyable 1 hour, but it's also great to see that throughout the day the different individuals that host a half hour, or in our case we had an hour. Law enforcement has an hour. I think law enforcement did just under 10,000. And not rubbing it in or anything, but Bob and I doubled them. And there was about 6 of them, and as I've always said, they have guns also. We don't.
Yeah, we don't even have guns.
But But at the end of the day, it's the bottom line figure that matters the most. We always like to have fun. It's always great. Competition is great.
Yes, it is.
I love competition. You thrive on competition. But at the end of the day, it's that bottom line figure. And that bottom line figure is just about $70,000. So again, to all of our listeners and viewers and everyone else who participated, thank you very, very much. Connie, with the long last name that starts with a K, it's involved with Martin Bruin for the the 3 days.
Yep.
For the last 2 years. Now, here's an individual that has a business in Del Mar. I don't know if he lives in Del Mar. He's in the Albany area. He's not in Ulster County. And huge donation last 2 years. And so it's also good to see that individuals from outside of the community who have come to our community and staged events and have worked with us and have helped. Obviously, the 3 days of cycling brings a big economic boost to Sorghitis and Ulster County, Sorghitis, Woodstock, Kingston, Ulster County, that these individuals recognize that and are willing to give back into the community that they don't live in.
Yeah. Connie's quite an individual, though.
Yeah.
He's really done it. He's tremendous, talented, and forward thinking, and you got to give him a lot of credit because he keep Martin on the straight and narrow. That's not easy to do.
That is not easy to do at all.
But we're excited for their event. Hopefully, 2022 we get back to a more normal event. I know they would like to do that. We would like to have that opportunity to host it again. It was great, really great.
It was a fun time, and I haven't. It's been quiet. I hope Martin didn't
If
break.
he's listening, he's going to text us.
I hope Martin didn't break his fingers or his wrists and can't email.
text. What are the things? And you certainly have a better perspective than I do.
I hope that's
It might be, but you have a better perspective on this point than I do. It's the creativity of people and the way they've reinvented opportunities to use the complex is incredible. And Martin did that with the bike race.
Yes.
There was, in my experience on Canton, we've never had an event like that. And to see it reinvented to host a race was pretty incredible.
It was. And
else.
I'll tell you what, I really liked the layout because at that time of the year, it was in the beginning of May. Everything started up at the ice arena, the registration, etc. And the ice arena was opened, okay, for skating. And then down to the south end of the complex, you take a Saturday and from mid-April till the end of June, I mean, it's packed. Little League's going, Babe Ruth's going, there's everything that's going. And that was the case that day. So before they even got to the south end of the complex, they went out through our facilities operations center on the Beers Lane. It was quite a turn there at Beers. I was challenging for the riders and then going uphill because obviously they had to slow. They couldn't gain momentum, but that was a nice layout. But again, that's what the complex is for. I always tout it as a 127-acre multi-functional recreation complex because it's not just recreation for baseball, softball, soccer. And there's also non-recreation events. The biggest, obviously, is the Garlic Festival. Last night, of all things, November the 9th, the high school soccer teams had their closing banquet at the large pavilion, and you couldn't have planned it any better to have an event in November. I mean, what the weather could be like. Yeah. So anyway, unfortunately, I had to go to a wake last evening. And it was about 6:45. I'm driving down. I drove through the complex. They had quite a crowd. I looked on my car. It was 57 degrees. And it was March the 9th at 6:45 in the evening.
Amazing. We got another good day in front of us today.
Yeah, today, tomorrow. Then we're going to get a little rain Thursday night into Friday. Gets a little bit cooler Monday and Tuesday. And then bumps right back up to the mid-upper 50s the end of the week.
I feel like we're stealing time now.
Oh, absolutely.
Stay like this right till April.
We are at the bottom of the hour, so listeners and viewers, we'll be back in a few.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the drug facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the drug facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/drug facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
100 years ago, there were 100,000 tigers in the wild. Today, there are as few as 3,200. The Earth's wild animals can't speak up when they need help, but we can. Be the voice for those who have no voice. Visit worldwildlife.org.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore. Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
Hi, I'm Ruth Quick from Town of Ulster. I support Kingston Community Radio, and you should too.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location. Easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank. Invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence, and welcome back, viewers and listeners who have been with us. Those just joining us, 331-9255 is our call-in number. We would love to hear from you. Fred Costello, supervisor from the town of Sorghitis, is with us here this morning.
Good morning.
Our 7:35 guest canceled, and so I guess we have more airtime.
Our poor listeners.
Now, maybe
we get Bill McKenna to call in.
Or
is Bill busy? I know he's like to call in at 7.
Yeah.
Why don't
Greg's
you
texting? Go ahead.
I'm going to text Neil. And
yeah, there you go.
It wouldn't hurt to have Bob on either. If Bob's listening, give us a shout in.
Yeah, we could talk.
Sawyer Motors just got a major national nomination for the Dealerships Association, and certainly Bob was a big part of why. So we're if he's listening, why don't you call in and share that news with our listeners? I think they would be all very interested and happy to celebrate that nomination with you. The Time Dealer of the Year. This is one of the most prestigious honors in the automotive industry. Bob is among 47 dealers in the country in the running for the national title, which will be announced early next year, I think in Las Vegas. And this is it's an honor whether he wins it or not. It's pretty incredible, but it's well deserved. Bob's been a huge reason why we've been able to stay on the air here at KCR. His car shows sponsors and helps so many organizations and families who are in need in Sorghitis. Holiday in the Village is right around the corner, and we have the first responders event where we gave out, how many toys did we give out at Canton last
my
year?
Lord. It was just truckload after truckload.
Yeah. I mean, he partnered with Alcon and CSX, and we're going to do that again. So there's a lot happening. It's pretty exciting. And, and it's nice to see you get that national recognition.
He just spoke to me yesterday afternoon because he wanted to know what I thought about a food truck.
Yeah, a little bit too.
So and then if it rained, using the kitchen. So what I had suggested to him, because then the pavilion enclosures are up, and in the rest of the open area we fence that off the way we stack the picnic tables. But anyway, I said, Bob, you could certainly use the kitchen and we'll set up tables and chairs in the downstairs room.
In the garages.
Yeah, below the stable club.
And if the weather's harsh that day, give a little bit of shelter as well.
And and I opened that up last year for people, both the glass door to the stable club and the other one on the south end that faces the playground. And people did go in there because, it was a sunny day. It was chilly, and there was a bit of a breeze, so the actual real feel was less than the ambient air temperature. So he's already got his wheels in motion to improve on later. I think it's the December the 12th. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think for some reason the 12th and the 15th are sticking out in my mind. The Holiday in the Village is one, and then the first responders.
Yeah, December 5th is Christmas in the Village,
Yep.
and December the 12th is the first responders. Yep. Boy, oh boy, everything comes up so quick.
Coming fast, right? Yeah. All of that's less than a month away. And for folks that may not have seen it yet, George Strait did a video, The Way to the Badge, and Sorghitis Chief Sinagra and Ulster County Sheriff Juan Figueroa, Stan Odell. There's a number of local law enforcement officials who are part of that video, and pretty special. Kind of nice that they get some recognition, too. So, a lot of interesting stuff happening.
We got an invite last Thursday to the private screenings and reopening of the Orpheum.
Orpheum, yeah, a lot of good news happening there too.
Yeah, a lot of good news, and they had some interesting performers, to say the least. And then the party was over at J&J Newberry's, and of course I hadn't been in there. I can't tell you how long, but what a great job!
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was a lady bought it, right?
Jen Hicks, and she's really reinvented how that space has been used, and really made it a place for art to be celebrated and viewed. And events for spaces like that is pretty credible. They've gotten quite a bit of use and recognition from the film industry. The film industry's used that for a number of things too.
You ever notice with things that when you're growing up, as compared to now, things look so much smaller.
Yes.
I went in there, and I'm looking at the thing, and I made a comment, and I forget who I was it might have been Skip Arthur, and he said, a lady just said the same thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
It looked much smaller, even though it was expansive. There was nothing in there but a DJ set up in the corner, and then the buffet table. It just looked so much smaller. And then a lot of times, because I'm a walker. And I love to walk the village streets, even in the wintertime. So a lot of times I'll loop around, I'll go down Jane Street, where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And I look at the sidewalks that I used to shovel snow. Mm-hmm. I'll say, look how small these sidewalks are. I was shoveling snow, they were huge.
Yeah, we had an 18-inch storm. I'm sure that sidewalk seemed really big. It's funny.
It is. I mean, I'm walking on the side, and I'm looking at the sidewalk. It's just like this, and what you remember is, man, that sidewalk really must have shrunk.
It sure did. I've had that sensation going into the schools on occasion and places like that you kind of remember being these large, intimidating structures, and then you walk inside and you feel like, wow.
Back in March when we were there for the vaccination thing, the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. Say, man, this cafeteria.
It doesn't feel as big as it
No, it doesn't feel as big.
Pretty interesting. I'm glad you mentioned the Orpheum, though. Upstate Films, for folks that may not know, bought the Orpheum from the Thornton family, who ran it for 100 years, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. And Sunday, in addition to the opening event on Thursday, they hosted a charrette of sorts, and they talked about the history of the Orpheum. And they had a really interesting panel, and they were able to honor the Thornton family and for their ownership and shepherding the Orpheum and quite frankly, preserving it. It was an economic resource for their family, but they went through the period where the multiplexes kind of just took over at the same time the VCRs and HBO came out. So the folks weren't going to the movies so the paradigm had shifted, and a lot of theaters did not survive that period. But the Orpheum did, and that's a credit to their leadership. And now Upstate Films just has this amazing vision for reinventing the Orpheum, and they have hopefully some opportunity to developed their capital plan, which will allow the Orpheum not just to be featuring video or film, but also bring back some live events there. And I really hope, I think that would be a tremendous resource for us.
They had several live entertainers there, and of course the main attraction was Sherlock Holmes Jr., which is always quite an interesting piece. And then prior to that, a Mickey Mouse clip, and that was funnier than heck. It was good. It was a real nice evening. But I thought maybe just to bring back a part of that history on the inside, they might have had someone dressed up as George going down with the flashlight down the aisle in front of there and behave yourself. Shut up.
Tom's told some really interesting stories about his dad. And,
I bet.
He could have probably took up a whole hour just sharing some of his experiences growing up. And his dad was quite a character and a legend. So it was really fun to share those moments and be part of it. And, that building has seen significant change. It was vaudeville basically, and as film became dominant, and the film industry grew here in Hudson Valley. Fort Lee is where it started. That was the original Hollywood, and it was fun to listen to people talk because all the equipment that made moving pictures possible was developed here in New York State or New Jersey. All of it, the sound equipment, the video equipment, and and we take for granted sound on film, but they were showing and demonstrating the original projector had a record player attached, and the record player would play from the inside out, and that's how you did the sound.
Cool.
Yep, it was pretty interesting.
Wow, that is
It was
interesting.
really it was fun to watch, and not those things we just take for granted now, but sound on film was a huge leap forward, and that building basically memorialized all those changes in the industry. And I think a return to live events there I think would be great. I just as they were talking about it, I could just see a comedy show or a music event at the Orpheum on a Saturday night, and that would just be such a big draw for people to come to Sorghitis. It would be pretty fun.
Yeah, I got to talk briefly with, I think it was Jason, right?
Yes. Yeah. His energy is contagious, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, and then speaking of with the filmmaking, they must have a large crew on site today over at, I believe they're filming at St. Mary's. And, previously they've rented out the parking along Mosier Drive from Washington to the intersection of Pavilion Street. Well, this time they've got Mosier Drive and Pavilion Street all the way down to just north of the Pavilion.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
So there's 225 regular daily jobs associated with that production.
Wow.
And, like today, obviously they're filming off-site. It could be thousands.
About a half a dozen of the film crew, film set, was at Newberry's
that night.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible, right?
I didn't realize it was that many.
It's 225 full-time employees working on that production every day. Wow. Their daily budget is something extraordinary, like $250,000 a day injected into the economy. And we always talk about the multiplier effect.
Oh, yeah.
You put 7 times that on a daily basis
I knew it
into
was
the Sorghitis
big. I
economy
didn't
and Ulster
realize.
County economy.
Yeah.
It's I'm just so thrilled. I think that's I don't think we fully realized the transformative impact that's going to have. There hasn't been an employer of that scale in our part of the county in a really long time. So this is a really transformative moment. And, as I look back, the folks that had the vision for this, Laurent he saw it before anybody else did. Kevin Pitcock had the wherewithal and the patience to wait for the right partners to do this. And wow, who would ever have thought?
And Kevin did have the opportunity to rent that out to some others, but boy, he had that vision and he stuck with it. And you have to commend him for that because, boy, I mean, it was like he had a crystal ball he was looking into.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was also an economic challenge for him to turn away potential tenants in the hopes of getting to where he wanted to be. But, good for him. And, what an amazing vision and individual he's been. So exciting. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun to see that. I know there's some disturbance in neighborhoods when they film. I know on Elm Street there was a couple of neighbors that got mad when they tied up the road for the period they did. But it was a couple-day event, and it was. I think at some level there was an excitement about it as well.
We had for the trunk or treat event where we closed the road. We had one person just flip right out. I overheard it on one of my team members, and I went over and I tried to speak reasonable to the individual. Just not going to get anywhere. And, I said, do you see how many children? Do you see how many vehicles? Do you see? It just like oblivious. And then you take something like that, and Mayor Murphy has shared those stories also with me. Well, if we didn't have these events that come into our community, whether it's the filmmaking, whether it's the events that take place at the complex, that in this day and age necessitate safety, because liability exposure is greater than ever. And God forbid a kid get hit, or any adult, or there's property damage occurs, you're going to get sued. Excuse me. So
in some cases, those accidents, for the victims, you may not be able to get back to normal, so to speak. If there's an injury that's catastrophic, holy cow.
But where I was going with this is, you live in the community. If you didn't have these in this injection of additional revenues, your taxes would just go up and up and up, worse than what you may have experienced.
Now. Yeah.
So to have that little bit of an inconvenience, I get a kick out of people who, the mayor and I also talk about this all the time, about the traffic congestion in the business district. I think it's great. That means there's, you go up and down Main and Petition Street. It used to be just weekends, Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday. Now it seems every evening of the week. And you look at the plates, there's Jersey plates, there's out-of-town plates, metropolitan area plates. We see this at the ice arena more and more, at the charging stations. Boy, those charging stations get some use.
There's another example of something, 5 years ago we would have to explain ourselves. Now, wow, they're really taking off. So that's good. Pretty exciting. But it's interesting, and who'd ever have thought? It's pretty fun and exciting to look at, and there's opportunities. I've spoken with a number of folks who were in the film industry, and some of them just did makeup or prepared sets or worked on lighting, and their commute involved going to Brooklyn or New York to work on a production, and they're working locally, and there's a trend now where folks that would stay in New York are coming up here because there's not just the Pretty Little Liars production, but there's a lot of other feature film and other productions happening at the same time. So there's a budding industry and a growing workforce that supports it, which is really exciting. And I think it's wonderful. I really do. It's so
and
exciting.
With the length of time that they've been here, obviously these people are staying in, I imagine.
This is 3-year contract, I believe. So there's some of the 200 and something folks, they've bought homes here, and this is now their home.
Or they're renting.
Yeah, they're going to be here. And the expectation is this is only going to get more impactful, and those opportunities will only expand. I learned something interesting, too. So if I was a resident working on a film production who lived in the Bronx, and there was filming happening in Ulster County, I would be on the clock for my trip coming from the Bronx up here, and I would work, and that was the union contract and how it went. However, if I was a resident of Ulster County going to the Bronx to work on a production, my clock didn't start until I punched in. That was the union rule. Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's pretty interesting. So for a lot of folks that were hesitant to live here because of that quirk, now that there's opportunities to work locally, there's a lot of folks willing to make this a permanent residence now. It's a weird quirk in the contract, right?
Yeah, I wonder what drove that. That's strange.
I don't know. It was that's
because I would imagine the same would apply to that individual that left the Bronx and was on the clock from the time he or she got in the vehicle, and then I imagine returning.
They're still on the clock.
Ulster County, you're on the clock until you to your home in the Bronx
Yep.
or wherever.
But if you came from Ulster County and went south, your clock doesn't start until you punched in at work.
Wow.
That was a quirky kind of odd thing. So if you stayed overnight in a hotel, or I don't know how you would get around it, you have to be there and be part of the team that traveled to the production site, and then you would be on the clock during travel and go back, still on the clock during travel. But if you traveled in, no. It was interesting too. We celebrated the life of Mark Braunstein, and Mark was such a he had so many different layers to his personality, and he was a mentor to so many folks. And it was uplifting to hear Kevin Pickock and Laurent talk about Mark being inspiring to them to help them realize their vision. And he played a big role in bringing that here. Him and his wife have deep roots in the arts community and in the film industry, and they saw that vision when it was in its infancy, and really Laurent credits Mark's support to him and mentorship and guidance for him seeing through to bring what has happened here. And certainly none of them did it by themselves, but he was a big part of that collaboration that kind of demonstrated that it was possible here. Mary Stuart Matherson's group really too, and you got the Plumbers in Woodstock and all these really interesting collaborative organizations now that are functioning and bringing these opportunities here. So it's exciting.
Well, it was a big loss for
Sure was.
for Sorghitis, and you got to stop and think. Look how he built that business from just a little small operation. Then it went over to where the present day town hall is, and then of course out to Mount Marion, and the number of people he employed, and then several years ago it all became he sold and all employee owned.
Yeah. There too, selling it to his employees, the value of that business he could have realized more money had he brought it to a venture capitalist and just sold it.
Oh, yeah.
Easily could have made more money, but he had the thought and the foresight to, reward the employees. Jim Veltry's been with him since they started. And
I think Greg DeSalle.
Greg DeSalle's been there. Andy
Barth.
Yeah. Steve Dodig. There's what an amazing team he put together, and they're the owners now.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. And it's growing. They're by all indications they're doing well. The conversations I've had with them remind me of the conversations we're having with any business that's trying to secure inventory. Is the breaks in the supply chain. They're a little bit nervous about their standing inventory supplies, if they can replenish or not. But
it's I just never. I don't think anybody could ever have envisioned a scenario that has taken place where just about everything is in demand. We reached out to for an invoice that's probably 6-7 months that was coming directly from John Deere, because it was a state contract purchase, and they're so backlogged, not enough help on sending out bills to get paid, an invoice to get paid. Can you imagine?
No, you can't.
Or like about a month ago or so ago, Stewart's, no coffee boxes.
Yep.
They couldn't get any.
Paper products are a challenge for the whole service industry right now. There's that supply is in jeopardy a little bit too. So odd, and it's curious to me that there's really no issue that we could put our thumb on and say if we could just fix that, things will restore themselves. It's complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. Certainly the gaps in trucking are problematic. The ability to unload the ships is problemaff. But
there's more and more trucks on the road than ever. Coming down the thruway this morning, that first pull-off area, the trucks, that entire area was full, and they had to be lined up a half a mile up the road on the shoulder of the thruway.
Wow.
Nobody could ever envision. I certainly never
No.
could envision.
No.
Lumber prices have come down slightly, but they're still up there.
They're still up there. They'll never go back to where they were. Right?
Oh, nothing will. Oh, no. Are you kidding me?
Go up and then come back a little bit, make us feel a little bit better, but it won't be.
Yeah, no.
It won't be back where it was. I think that's true of gas too. We're creeping up there on the gas prices. A couple of years ago, we had around $2 a gallon for a little while.
Yeah.
I get it. That was during the pandemic, so nobody was traveling.
Right.
So
I don't think we'll see that again.
I doubt we'll see that.
But, everything is so volatile. Who knows?
never know.
Who knows?
You never know.
You never do know. And should mention, in the 8 o'clock hour, we got State Assemblyman Kevin Cahill. That will be
Always informative.
joining. Always informative. Breakfast sandwich, we hope.
Kevin was up in Sorghitis. We had a visit from Governor Hochul.
Yeah.
And Kevin was up there and kind of emceed it. Always does a great job. And there's a new excitement with the new governor. There's an optimism and kind of.
She's got some challenges, though.
She's going to have. Yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult race. I think one of the things I thought was neat though is, and Kevin was reciting this, and we might want to talk about it when he gets here. When you look, it's kind of unique in my lifetime that Governor Hochul's from upstate. But when you look back, all the governors are from upstate.
Yeah.
And it was pretty interesting to see how that changed quite a bit. And but I think her presence in the governor's office right now brings a little bit of balance back, because the last few governors have all kind of been from the New York City metropolitan area. And I think for folks upstate, not even us per se, they feel a little bit left out by that.
Yes, you do. And especially the further away from the city that you get, you have to feel that sense of being left out.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the distance between Buffalo, Syracuse, and the city.
Yeah.
Or the North Country in the city, for that matter.
Yep. So I think her presence in office is a little bit of a breath of fresh air for folks that might be in Sydney, up by the Canadian border, and it's welcome. That's good. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting primary. That season will start though. I mean, we're going to get through the holidays, and then by January we're going to see a number of announcements of who's interested in running, and there'll be some fundraising activity to kind of show who has strength and who doesn't. And then we're going to hit the ground hard, and we'll have a primary, I think, in March, and then we'll know who the nominee will be.
In March.
I think it's March, yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Not June.
No, I'm sorry, you're right, Greg. June.
Yeah.
But the work to get there, the petitioning and all the other parts of the political calendar, really, it's a lot of work for the committees. And that's where we're headed, though. So that's the process, and we'll see how it goes. Next year's election will be a curious endeavor to watch. There's trends that if they're realized, it will probably experience a significant measure of change again.
And the redistricting lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be taking place.
Yeah, those announcements should be pending.
Maybe Kevin can touch upon that a little bit.
On that, yeah.
I'm sure he'll come with his list of homework.
Yeah, he always comes prepared.
Yes, he does. He always is prepared.
We look forward to it. All right, so we're
approaching the top of the hour, and time to take it away. But we'll be back in a few with State Assemblyman Kevin Cahill.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Think fast. In the short time it takes to listen to this message, a small flame can turn into a big fire. Several minutes more, and thick, poisonous smoke may have filled your lungs and reduced your ability to respond. Give it 5, and your entire home may be filled with flames.
Keep breathing. We got you.
Don't let your world go up in smoke. Have working smoke alarms and practice an escape plan for you and your loved ones. Learn more at usfa.fema.gov, because fire is everyone's fight.
This is Cameron Rylands. Many families in our area will not have a happy holiday, and the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund will help them. We are asking for your contribution to purchase children's clothes, toys, and food for seniors. You can drop off your contribution at the Boyce Brothers Dairy Milk House on O'Neill Street in Kingston. Thank you.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're fighting against childhood cancer every day. At the heart of this battle are our donors.
Most of us want to make some type of difference in the lives of others. St. Jude does miraculous work.
The fact that no one has to pay, it's a place where everyone is treated as an equal.
Everybody is welcome here, and it doesn't matter your religion or what part of the world you're from, all that is taken away. It just gives you some hope.
It's just a nice feeling to put your energy into something that really does genuinely make a difference in a child's life.
There's just no greater gift. If we have the ability to help, then we have a responsibility to help.
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Find out how you can help at stjude.org.
Hi, this is Tony Marmo from Norman Staffing, and we've been bringing together employers and job seekers since 1980. If you're an employer and have job vacancies, let Norman Staffing help fill them with permanent or temporary workers. We screen, interview, and recommend the best candidates for your company. We make the employment process easier and faster for you. Please call Norman Staffing for your employment needs at 338-9111, 338-9111, or normanstaffing.com.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This programming is brought to you by the Friends of Kevin Cahill. As a strong advocate of local broadcasting, Assemblymember Cahill urges you to support Kingston Community Radio with your time and donations. Your contributions keep KCR vital and on the air at FM 92.5, AM 920, and on the web at mykcr.org. Please join Assemblymember Cahill and send your gifts of $10, $25, or more to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. Together, let's keep KCR alive.
Thank you, Lawrence, and welcome back, listeners and viewers who have been with us. Those just joining us, 331-9255 is our call-in number. We would love to hear from you. We have State Assemblyman Kevin Cahill in the studio here.
Good morning.
Fred Costello, who's the supervisor from the town of Sorghitis.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, and it's time for birthdays.
We'll start with my family. Happy birthday to my brother Terry tomorrow on November 11th. Following that, my sister Liz on the 15th, and my brother Brian on the 30th, and my niece Tara on some date unspecified in the month of November. I can't remember.
I think hers was yesterday.
Tara?
I think so.
I think that was Brittany. Trust me, we know a lot of November birthdays in our family.
That's a good one for cake, then. You get to have cake
Good
with
one
every
for
meal,
cake.
yeah. So we have a special birthday here put in by our very own Greg Chorvas. Happy birthday to Sheriff Figueroa.
Ah.
Yeah, 11th. Happy birthday to our sheriff from your Sorghitis friends. And we also have happy birthday, good morning. We have a friend, Tezzy Smith, who is having a birthday on the 10th of November. We'd like to wish him a happy 72nd birthday. Thank you, Georgia and Brett. So happy birthday, Tezza. And is there another one?
Oh, wow.
We got three. And we have
happy birthday to Bill Brooks from your friends at Lunch a Bunchers.
And today's winner of that famous cow pie
Who?
is Tessie, and I believe it's Smythe. Tessie Smythe. Tessie, happy birthday. Congratulations. When you get the opportunity, get down to 62 Neal Street right here in Kingston. Pick up that famous cow pie, courtesy of Boyce Dairy Milk House and Kingston Community Radio. Tessie, enjoy. Have an awesome day. Happy birthday.
Were you successful in getting Mr. Bill, the supervisor from Sorghitis, from Woodstock to call?
Not this morning.
Okay.
I didn't even finish the text to him.
Okay.
I know he's, we're all busy right now because we're all in the throes of our
budget, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And,
Bill McKenna.
Yeah. And the deadline for submission is creeping up. I think it's the 22nd. So we're all trying to finalize and address the concerns that residents raised to us.
So far, the budgets we've seen, the county budgets that have come out, have been pretty good. There is a little COVID relief padding in there, but by and large, they're pretty reasonable budgets. I know Ulster made a terrific investment in mental health. That's going to be very important since our hospitals have kind of walked away from that responsibility in a very significant way. And that doesn't fill the hole, but it starts the process. And in Dutchess County, the county executive made a decision to do a tax rebate, to cut taxes a little bit. Those tax cuts, I don't know whether they actually are meaningful to most people. The county tax bill is relatively small compared to the whole real property tax bill. And even one time, the Ulster County legislature eliminated the county tax, and no one noticed.
Something that only folks that take the time to understand is there are, on our budget sheet, there's, I think it's 33 different authorities that are taxing you for a service.
Right.
And of those 33, I think the town, we only oversee 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's
like a library district, a water district,
Correct.
a sewer district, a fire district,
Yep.
and
The lighting district. Yep.
Sidewalk district, no doubt.
The village has the sidewalk district, so there's a lot in there, and it's difficult even for someone who has the responsibility to understand it, to understand it all. So the average resident's really not going to take the time to fully grasp it. The subject of a lot of conversation for us at Sorghitis is the ambulance service. We contracted with Diaz for 911, and that model has served us, I would argue, well for the past 25 plus years. However, the call volume has increased to a point where they can no longer fulfill their mandate with 2 ambulances in the contract, and they're asking for a third. And they have widespread support amongst the fire districts who are picking up the slack, so to speak, when those third calls come. But, there's a cost associated with that.
And it will show up.
It will and it won't. We did a comparison to the Dutchess County budget.
Yeah.
And our overall spending increase is 5.09%, and the Dutchess County budget was a larger increase than that, which I found curious. And our tax rate reduction is still 8%, and their tax rate reduction was a little bit over 10%, but they declared theirs to be historic, and my public hearing was very testy. Folks were, and the practical cost of the ambulance is about $57 on the average homeowner. And I think put into that context, for $57, I would rather have the security to know that if I have a 911 need, they're coming, than gamble. And
you got it.
Yeah.
So
Well, it also takes some burden off the volunteer fire companies, because when Diaz doesn't have a rig available, it's the volunteer fire companies that have to respond. And, you have to also take a look at that. We're very, very fortunate to have dedicated volunteer firemen. I mean,
Absolutely.
can you imagine if it got to the point where we had to have a town-wide paid fire department?
No,
that would be
a noticeable increase.
Noticeable? It'd be be monstrous.
And I think so. Thank you to the fire departments who are doing it, but their primary mandate isn't to answer medical calls. And they're a little bit frustrated and concerned because their ability to respond productively is compromised. They cannot do a transport of someone having a heart attack. They couldn't give someone having a heart attack life-saving medicines, nitroglycerin, or anything like that. They're really restrained in what they can offer. They basically can just show up and comfort everyone.
And in Kingston, the first responders are the fire department, and they're not ambulance attendants. They're not EMTs per se. They have a great deal of training, and they do a lot of stabilization. And there's no fee for that. That's part of the tax
their
base.
911 response.
Yeah.
Interesting, especially from your perspective. The towns or the municipalities we've all kind of invented our own solution to the 911 problem.
Yes.
And some of it works and some of it, quite frankly, does not.
Exactly.
And I think the challenges of maintaining that, even systems that might work today, may not work tomorrow.
I've had a problem with the 911 taxes on cell phones. They've been added, I think it was 50 cents 3 times or 2 or 3 times. So now I think it's as much as $1.50 a month that you pay on most cell phones. There are some that you don't pay it on. The tax has not been used for the purposes for which it was intended. It was to create E911 to make every call readily locatable immediately, to enhance the response time, to allow for better infrastructure. And some of it went for non-emergency purposes. In one instance, there was landscaping at a trooper barracks. And that's what the 911 tax went for. And that offended me. So I've been voting against them ever since. And it's kind of an odd thing because I certainly want to do everything we can. We had a colleague had a very, very unfortunate circumstance in his life. He's no longer in the legislature. But his daughter made a 911 call. She had been kidnapped. And she made a 911 call. And the entire call was recorded. And she lost her life while she was on 911. They couldn't locate her. So he was very active in doing the enhanced 911, the triangulation, and all the stuff to make it locatable. But I can't imagine, having heard that, he heard that recording time and time again, and it's like the concept of it is maddening to me.
Yeah. Something I've been meaning to ask you, and a bell just went off in my head when you said about the landscaping at a trooper's barracks or wherever.
Yeah.
What was the need or the thinking, the rationale behind, in New Baltimore, building that new rest area?
I stopped there for the very first time the other day. I had actually stopped in Sorghitis to grab something to eat, and I realized the chicken sandwiches are sloppy when you're driving the throughway. So I pulled over there for the very first time. You got me, Greg.
Because you could still go. They had a ramp to take you across the throughway.
Yeah, and there are no services there, so far as I know. There's no gas station there, but there are charging stations, and there is.
Where on the opposite side?
On this northbound visitor center.
Right.
There are charging stations.
But on the south side, there's full service. There's
full service,
and there's.
Well, there isn't today, but there usually is. They're renovating, so
many
of the rest areas are closed, either in part or in full. The only thing you have on the southbound side right now is fuel.
Okay.
But that's temporary. I mean,
right.
While they redo.
Well, you always have to take the time. There's downtime for renovating, but I can just imagine what that must have cost.
It kind of one day was just showing up there. And I don't exactly know where it came from. I don't remember it being in a budget. Don't forget the Thruway is an authority. It's not a department in government, so they kind of have a little bit more free reign. It's also theoretically self-supporting. It's paid for with tolls and not with state general funds. And the rest areas have their own set of economy. I mean, I really don't understand the full logistics of how the rest areas are paid for. I do believe that they're paid for by contract. That is, the people that are using them pay a fee that is used to pay off the debt that it took to build them. But in this instance, I didn't go inside, so I don't know whether there was a restaurant in there or not. I'm not sure if there is. But it's very attractive. And it was.
Oh, it's a beautiful building.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I haven't been in it.
It's themed for the Capital District, so you go in. There's a sculpture of Saratoga, the horses and the different aspects of horse racing, and it is a beautiful building. And There's motorcycle parking there. I think our former governor was a motorcycle enthusiast, and he realized he needed covered motorcycle parking when you're on your way to Albany. So there's a motorcycle garage there. This is just a little sort of like a carport, yeah. But there's also 3 or 4 or 5 charging stations, and I think that ultimately that's going to be important, right? We're already getting to the point where charging stations are getting in greater and greater demand every day.
We talked about it in the first half hour. The charging stations that we have at the complex, it's unbelievable how they get used. And you see plates.
Are they Tesla charging stations?
No.
Okay. The Tesla maps them out, and they tell their drivers where to go. And they say, oh, you want to go from here to there, you have to stop in this place.
Well, yeah, you just put the app on the phone, and it'll tell you where. It's at the Greco Center, the tennis court, or the ice arena. But, it's what constantly surprises me, and it shouldn't anymore because of the influx, but Jersey plates, metropolitan area plates.
Sure.
I charge. So now, while we're on the subject
we're
of the
part of the Charge Point network. Yeah. That's what we've, and I'm actually installing one at Sue's, and hopefully before the end of the year it'll be up and running. But there is an issue with, so we're level 2 charging stations.
I believe so.
So the next grade up is generally the Tesla ones, and those are ones you can pick up a lot.
Supercharged, right.
Correct. But there's a demand cost associated with that much energy that where the conversations we had with potential sponsors is those demand charges are intimidating, and they could be as much as 25 cents a kilowatt.
Yeah, and people are saying that there's, in some places in the country, some places in California, the cost of filling up your battery rivals the cost of filling up your tank. That there's not a big difference between the two. Of course, overnight charging at home, when peak demand is down, almost non-existent, those electrons are flowing because they have to flow. The cost dropped tremendously. One other quick note, when we were talking about property taxes, I thought of this, and I haven't gotten the details, but I believe the package that is headed to the president's desk or on his desk right now includes a partial restoration of the SALT deduction.
Welcome for our area.
Welcome for our area. The state and local tax deduction was critical to the economy of New York State. It cost us billions of dollars during the years that it was not available, and I think there's a reasonable cap on it now. If I'm not mistaken, the cap is going to rise from $10,000 to $80,000, and it will continue through 2031. And then in 2031, there'll have to be consideration again. So,
yeah, that's a welcome relief. And I think we don't know the scope of it. There's no data, but I suspect that there was a migration out of New York, especially for financial services.
I don't know if that happened to any great extent. I mean, we study that, and we haven't seen any evidence of it in our annual, well, we haven't gotten this year's annual report yet. It's coming in a couple of days. But usually our Board of Economic Advisors lets us know if something like that occurs, because we can tweak and do things with the tax code that kind of remediates that when it's necessary. But quite frankly, we have not seen an exodus from New York because of tax. There have been individuals, high-profile individuals. I think the guy from Buffalo, Carl Palladino, and the guy from New York, Donald Trump, they left, and a handful of others too. And I honestly, I have some friends who made that decision on the advice of their accountant at this particular point in their life. But by and large, taxes are more meaningful and more significant a factor in working people's lives than they are in the ultra wealthy and the very wealthy. And so the $10,000 SALT cap impacted all of us. An $80,000 SALT cap should capture most of the folks who need that kind of relief, and to sort of level the playing field a little bit. So we'll see, but time will tell. It's not a license for us to raise taxes.
No, but it's not uncommon for an average tax bill in our part of the Hudson Valley to be $7,000 or $8,000 a year. So
then you have your state income tax. You have your state income tax, your local property taxes, and like you said, and some of these things are paying for essential services like fire protection and water, and case of Kingston, they took the water and the sewer portion off the real property tax bill, so it hasn't been deductible for years, unfortunately. But the combined, it's not uncommon for somebody with a $75,000 income to have a tax bill combined state and local of over $10,000. It was not uncommon. Schools are expensive, so we're looking forward to that happening. And so, you were a great host the other day at the Dutch.
You did a great job.
I know you had multiple demands on you that day. And by the way, you were the best dressed guy there.
When doesn't he have multiple?
He was the best dressed guy there. Better dressed than the governor's entourage.
I can't believe that.
I got lucky when I did my tie. That Windsor came out just right. I only had to do it once. So I was like, good to go. Thank you. You did a great job, and that was a great energy, right?
I didn't do a great job. I did a really poor job in that I misintroduced several people. But
I wouldn't confess to it.
It was good to have a couple of minutes to sit next to the governor and exchange a very pleasant, informal conversation. We only did have a few minutes. Of course, she almost as soon as she got there, she had to speak. But you got the crowd riled up. You got them energized. In fact, you had the biggest crowd of the day because by the time the governor got there, the crowd had dwindled a little bit because she was a little bit late. She had been held up in her previous stops. But you did a great job of rallying the troops. I know the results were not 100% what you were looking for in Sorghitis, but around the county, I think there was an impact.
Yeah,
so
did okay. Curious election. There always is. There's there's the broad theme that we all see, and then there's all these underlying themes that you kind of have to analyze and figure out.
Yeah. And I think Getty Svikalkis has described Ulster County now as having a Mason-Dixon line. when you look at the county legislature, there's only, I think Dean is the only one in the north who's a Republican, and all the other Republicans are from the deep south of Ulster County. Yeah. So
there's historic pockets in the southeastern side of that, and I imagine that's where they came from.
And a couple of supervisors changed hands in those towns this time around too. Very curious election. Dutchess County was very much a Republican day for most of Dutchess County. Again, there's a Mason-Dixon line there too. The northern part of Dutchess County did very well for the Democratic candidates, and the other parts of Dutchess County, even Hyde Park, switched parties, and so it was a strange year. Long Island saw a remarkable turnaround from a year ago even, voters flocking to the Democratic Party 2 years ago, and last year to voters abandoning them this year. So it's a curious circumstance. I abide by the 40-40-20 rule, and that is that 40% of the vote goes to one major party. 40% of the vote goes to the other major party, and all elections are decided by the 20% in the middle.
That's true.
And so the 20% in the middle is malleable. They're changeable. They make a decision based upon a lot of different factors, and they're not always rational from a perspective of before the election. But afterwards, you can usually suss it out. You can usually figure out what that was all about.
So the curiosity now is going to be those trends. Do they extend into the next voting cycle or not?
I think, had the infrastructure bill passed 2 weeks ago instead of last week, I think we would have seen some different results. I think part of what the public reacts to is the lethargy, the unsuccessful government, and they were seeing this battle playing out in Washington, where we were talking about infrastructure for about 6 months, and nothing was getting done. And so they said, what difference does it make who's in charge, right? So they made a decision there. I think there is COVID fatigue, major COVID fatigue.
I agree.
And
I agree with that also, yeah.
And, it doesn't matter that Joe Biden's only been president for 11 months of it. It's been around for almost, I guess we'll be celebrating 2 years or 3 years?
No,
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
What, February?
Yeah. So, there's There's that factor.
That's not the right word to use, celebrating.
Well,
marking it.
I'll tell you what, it seems like 100.
I know.
It seems like 100 years. And I think all of society is clamoring, just waiting to get back to normal as quickly as we can. We're seeing it. I mean, most of all, I want to see school kids be able to take masks off. And, an educator said to me, there are children who are learning to form words without being able to watch somebody's mouth. And, and the teacher can't see their mouth when they're forming the word either, because they're behind a mask.
Just this morning on ABC News, and I can't think of the school district they mentioned in North Jersey, excuse me, they set a policy where if the parents consent, the child does not have to wear a mask.
Uh-huh. See, here's my view of this whole thing, and it's a very, maybe not the same view that a lot of people have, but when we started with the self-isolating, when we started with the closing down, when we started with the masks and all this other stuff, it was not to protect me from you. It was to protect our healthcare system from us. Our healthcare system was being burdened to a point where it could no longer provide the basic services that were necessary, couldn't provide even emergency services.
Kind of diminished.
And that's not the case anymore. Our healthcare system is, to a very large extent, there are pockets where that's not true. Ohio is one, where the healthcare system is not being strained, and that emergency is over. And if we recall why we took those emergency steps, then if that emergency is over, shouldn't we be starting to think about getting ourselves back to normal as much as possible? We're not going to be immune from sickness.
No.
I mean, last year we were. Last year there was no flu. There were very few colds.
Well, you also have to think, was there flu, but it was diagnosed as COVID? I just can't believe there was no flu.
I don't think so. I think the masking actually worked. I mean, listen, I'll tell you this. There is one place where I think I will wear a mask forevermore, and that's on an airplane. It was amazing. When I've flown, did I fly twice or three times? I've flown twice, 2 round trips. And when I got off the plane, I usually anticipate getting sick several times during the year. When I get off an airplane,
No fooling.
No, and when I'm done with the summer reading program. and
You and every other kindergarten teacher.
Me and all the kindergarten teachers, right? So I got off the airplane this time, took the mask off, and I was like, oh, man, I didn't breathe stale, nasty air of everybody's sneezes, coughs, and, they're expectorating the delicious airplane food into the air. And
really make it that should be a commercial for the airline industry. It's really welcoming and motivating.
Yeah, come on our planes. But I really do think I will wear a mask. My sister actually says she wears 2 masks on the plane. She doubles her mask, and on the plane she flies a lot, and so. And she said the same thing. She said, when, those times where you think, oh, you heard that guy coughing 3 rows back, and you thought, there you go, now I'm going to get the flu. So I think we have to accept the fact that we're going to start getting sick again. I have one employee out sick today. We don't know if it's COVID, but, people get sick. We had a long run of people not getting sick because we were protecting ourselves. I also read an article last week that said that we may have lowered our immune system as a result of protecting ourselves so much.
Ooh, no fooling.
Yeah, that we may see a rash of a lot of illness coming up because of we have protected ourselves against all these germs that would have created maybe a minor ailment that now did not allow us to build the antibodies, and will now suffer a greater ailment. So,
that's an interesting,
curious theory, right?
Yeah, and this wasn't a crackpot article either. It was like a National Institute of Health article, and they're studying it. They don't have it yet as a clear consequence, but they're studying it to see if it's likely. It is also something that is being looked at by hospitals, because they do expect a surge when we get fully back into a fully active society again. They expect a surge of people coming back to hospitals. So there will be another strain on hospitals soon, and maybe we have to do as much as we can to get to normal as soon as we can to start to deal with that as well. That surge will be all the delayed surgeries, all the delayed procedures, and the illnesses that might have resulted from people who weren't exposed to them before.
We are at the bottom of the hour. We will be back in a few.
listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
On top of first-class care, you will never receive a bill. The only thing we had to worry about was just keeping Azalea comfortable. St. Jude saved her life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
This is Greg Chorvas, and once again, the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund is asking you to help the needy this holiday season. For the last 50 years, the WGHQ Happy Christmas Fund has helped less fortunate families have a happier holiday. Look for our collection boxes at the local branches of the Ulster Federal Credit Union, Rondout Savings Bank, the Mid-Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union, Ulster Savings Bank, and at the Kiwanis Ice Arena in Sorghitis. Thank you very much, and have a happy and Merry Christmas.
A message from the American Migraine Foundation.
It's an absolute nightmare.
There's pain that does not stop.
I feel trapped by migraine.
Migraine is a disabling disease.
I feel like I'm dying. You feel like the world's closing in on you. There's nothing you can do.
It's like you're trapped in your head. There's no escaping it. You can't leave your body.
Don't suffer alone. Make your move against migraine. Visit AmericanMigraineFoundation.org to find help, learn more, and get connected.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed. We are a global force for good. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. We can do more together than we can alone. Join in. Experience the joy of serving. Be part of the movement. Give back. Let's unite the world for good. We are Lions. You can be too. Visit weserve.org.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? By shifting to a system that gives more patients access to strong primary care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
Hi, my name is Jackie Levezzo. I'm from Lake Katrine, and I support Kingston Community Radio because it is an invaluable resource to the community and its residents.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Is that before the vaccine?
Yeah. Thank you, Lawrence, and welcome back, listeners and viewers who have been with us, those just joining us for the last half hour already. Welcome. 331-9255 is our call-in number. We'd love to hear from you. The phones have been quiet. We have State Assemblyman Kevin Cahill in the studio, along with Town Supervisor from Sorghitis, Fred Costello.
Good morning. I noticed that you mentioned in the first hour the Sorghitis Veterans Day service. I just for the listeners in other communities, just be aware that there's a lot of services tomorrow, and they all take place around 11:11 on 11/11, armistice moment. So I know in Kingston we have the annual ceremony at City Hall. I think there's one going on at Esopus and a few other places. It is a good day to sit and commemorate. It's also a day that I will tell you, I stand out on the hill of City Hall and keep my eye out for that first snowflake. Sometimes you get that first snowflake that day.
All right, we've got a couple of callers waiting in the wings. Good morning, caller. You're on the air with Kingston Community Radio.
Good morning, gentlemen. How everybody doing today?
Doing great, George. How you doing?
First thing, you missed a birthday this morning. Today is the 246th birthday of the United States Marine Corps.
Oh, shame on me.
And second thing, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
I saw in the paper yesterday where you're going to be, looks like you're going to be primary this year. And I tell you what, I would not take these guys lightly because we saw what happened to Mr. Donaldson. And I would hate to see you go and get one of them in, because you have done a fantastic job and everything else. I don't always agree with you, but hey, you're there, you answer your people, you got your people there to talk to your constituents when they call in and everything else. So I really would hope that you do win your primaries this coming year.
Well, thank you, George. It is nothing that anyone takes for granted. And, quite frankly, I respect anyone's right to participate in the process as they see fit.
Good morning. You're now
I do
listening
hope that
to
I'll be
Kingston
able to
Community Radio, airing
have
on
a discussion
FM
around the
92.5
community
and
to
AM 920
talk about whether they think I've
Kingston,
adequately represented them, or
This programming
or if
is
they
brought
think
to
it's
you
time for
by
someone
our
else. That's going to be up
listeners
to
and
them.
corporate
But
underwriters
you're
who are
absolutely right.
interested in
Nothing should be
presenting
taken for granted.
local community radio.
But I appreciate
the
your
opinions
kind words.
expressed on this program
Yes, sir.
do not
And I
represent
tell you
those
what,
of
for the
Hamill
people that are listening
Broadcasting
and
or
stuff,
Kingston Community
really
Radio.
be careful
Listeners
what you vote
are
for,
encouraged
because,
to send in
you got certain people that
$10
will
per
not
month to help bring this program to
work
you.
with anybody.
Mail
at
your
all. It's either gonna
contributions
be their
to
way or the higher
Kingston
rate. So,
Community
Kevin,
Radio,
I will wish you
Post
the best
Office
of luck.
Box
And
4364,
the American Legion
Kingston,
Town of
New
Esopus
York,
will be holding our
12402.
Veterans Day services tomorrow at 11
For more
o'clock.
information
at
or to donate online, visit our website at MyKCR.
George was saying that the American Legion in
Good morning, this
Esopus
is Stan Gaddis.
will be
It is a
holding
medical
their
Monday.
service
It's
at
Monday,
11
November
o'clock as
8th,
well.
and 30
I don't know
degrees right now here
exactly
in
where,
uptown
but
Kingston. We'll be right back
there's a
after
full
these
listing on the front
messages.
page of the Daily Freeman today.
Sorry, George.
We
Somehow
lost
we
George
lost.
next. I got Bob Circusano on the line.
Good morning, Bob.
Everyone has an opinion.
Good morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Sure can. How you doing, Bob?
What's going on? Everything's good, right?
And make the decision. Congratulations, pal. This is we're excited for you. I'm sure you're very excited. That nomination is quite an honor.
If you came
No, I
across
thank you for
someone
that.
struggling
Yes,
with
it is,
hunger,
and
how would
I'm
you
looking forward to the
recognize
trip to Vegas,
By
and
their
I'm taking my
clothes,
crew.
their age,
It should be
the way
very
they speak?
interesting, and
Would
I'm
you
just glad
notice
to
a
be
16-year-old
part of
boy
something
who
like
got his
that.
first
But,
job?
I just want to talk about something, if I could. This Friday night, as you know, I'm involved with the ARC. I'm the host of their holiday event with Nadine Ferraro, and I will be hosting the Winter Wishes and the Snowflake Kisses. It's the ARC Mid-Hudson 2021 holiday event. And there's items on there that you could go to their website right now, and there's trips that there's a silent auction going on. We're giving away a nice vacation trip. We're giving away a bunch of wine baskets, and I'm happy to say that someone could actually bid on my Good Humor truck for me to come to their home or to their event, to their birthday party, and I'll get dressed up as the Good Humor Man. And I'm in the process of buying another suit, because I know that Kevin Cahill would probably like to join me sometime with the white suit on, where he could go on his campaign, and I'll be right next to him, and we could give away all kinds of ice cream.
I may bid on that for the summer reading program next year, Bob. We're going to. I may have to go on the website to bid on that one.
Listening to KCR,
but
Kingston
I just want
Community
to call in. I know you wanted me to call in early, but I had something going on. But other than that, we got Holiday in the Village coming up, and we'll
KCR's talk radio and call-in show.
I'm happy to say that we got Hope Rock's involved this year. They're going to be playing having a couple bands at a section of the in the village where they'll be playing holiday music, and then there's going to be window decorating contest, the toy giveaway. As you know, we're buying toys left and right now.
Clear skies and a low near 35
there's also going to be a doo-wop group going in and out of all the restaurants. They'll be singing holiday music. So hopefully we'll have good weather, and then the following after that we have the
cloudy with a low of 43.
First responders.
Yeah,
that low on
First
Tuesday
responders
night.
event.
Wednesday
And, we're
again,
working on
a
that
high
as
of
we
61
speak,
with.
And there's an
only
event at the
a
Orpheum during Holiday Village as
otherwise
well, right?
Sunny.
Yes, they are. They're going to be playing
Wednesday night,
holiday
clouds with a
movies
low of 31.
throughout the day, which is kind of nice. I didn't get a chance to go to the grand opening on the 4th, but I heard it was spectacular.
It was.
All right, good morning.
Welcome to this
I'm looking forward to go see the French Dispatch there. That's playing there right now, and I want to catch it. But if I can just break in here for a minute. These guys from Sorghitis asked you to call to talk about your award, and you spent about 15 seconds talking about that, and then you went on to talk about community events. So
that's why you got the nomination you got.
So thank you for doing that, but I'd love to hear more about your award or the nomination.
What do you think?
I'm excited. It was quite it's an honor.
Get up
for probably once in a lifetime deal, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's nice to have
This is time.
Not to have
puts
to
this
put the
together,
lights
correct?
on when you're
That's
Dealer
correct,
of the
yes,
Year.
Time magazine, yes.
And there's only
47 dealers across the country that get this nomination once a year.
Leaving your office for the
Yeah, what they do is they pick one from each state.
No matter what,
belong to
we
this
live in the
organization,
northern hemisphere,
and there's 47 of them. And then we go to Vegas.
Day, one way or the other.
They have they have a panel.
Anyway,
that looks at
so
all the
nice
stuff that we've
some
done,
patients ask me about
we
light
do,
therapy.
and how we run our business and what we do back in the community. And then
has been studied and found to be effective
top three,
people, specifically
and then the top three will get $5,000 each. Their 501c choice. And then the winner gets $10,000
or doldrums or whatever.
Goes with it. So
but just in general, light therapy can be a good.
I find it hard to believe that there's a single car dealership anywhere in the United States who is as community involved as yours is.
It's very common.
You do so many
I
things.
have my employees have been with me a long time.
With minimal
work hard on all the stuff we do, and
but I do think about
they come
how
up
hard
with
it
these
can be
ideas,
on,
and we
for
just
example,
put
my
it together.
87-year-old father
And
who.
we live in such a great, I always say county, and it's not just Sorghitis, it's Kingston does a lot, no matter where you go, it's always some good things going on,
so it's a little bit of an adjustment.
The
anyway,
Garlic
so we have a bunch of
Festival,
topics
for instance,
planned
that
for
kind
this
of
morning's
stuff.
show. Our phone number is 331-9255.
I had a meeting with them last night, and they did very well.
Bob and I will be here until
now
9.
they're going to probably plan how they're going to give all that money away, which is just.
I want to talk first about something.
Yeah, really,
heard
the
about
impact of that can't be overstated. What an amazing partnership.
Well, congratulations for the recognition. I hope you go the distance, but even if you didn't, the nomination of being nominated as the best in New York State is pretty important right there.
Another word.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks for calling in. Always great to hear from you, Bob.
Before you go, the toy giveaway
when something is
at Holiday Inn Village, is that going to be at the corner of Market and Main?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be just like it was, when we had it, a year and a half ago.
Glands.
So, be just like that.
Glands that kind of sit right above the kidneys.
So that's a great event as well, and you get a lot of folks that come out and enjoy it, and it has a really nice nostalgic feel to it the whole day.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Hopefully for good weather, and it'll be a great day. We're going to have Santa Claus at the Pearson House, and there's a lot of stuff going on that day.
And also, Bob, I don't mean to keep you, but since Kevin was out of town, Bob Circasano, during our hour, threw out a challenge. Anybody had donated $1,000 to the Happy Christmas Fund, he would come to their party,
of the body,
their event at their house as the good humor man with his good humor truck. And what did we get? About 4?
We got 3 of them.
Yeah, we did. We did pretty good.
Yeah, we did good. One of our new callers. She
was the first one. She jumped right in.
Yeah, Pat. She's the first one. And then his brother was the second one, and I forget who the third one was. So $3,000 that cost him. But thank you very much, Bob. You and Greg both did an excellent job.
Glad to be part of it.
Thank you. We're up to $69,150.
Travel.
That is awesome.
Another part of the body to have.
I know I got more money coming in. I know Greg does too.
I do too as well.
Gland.
But do you have any
thyroid hormone
barometer of how often that truck goes out? Because I feel like I see it every couple days.
Well, I was out last Saturday. I was out twice. I was out Friday night at 7 o'clock. I went to the what's the name of that
deep in your
football team? Greg,
the Outlaws.
It actually secretes a total of 6
hormones. There was probably about 50 kids there. Little kids. It was nice. I guess one of the coaches had a little event at their house.
Anyway.
I went there. They didn't know I was coming,
so
and I surprised them with the good human truck, and it was nice.
People say,
and then we had a grand opening in one of the pet stores, grooming stores here right on Market Street. I was there for about an hour and a half.
So what do the adrenal glands do? They kind of have 3 main sections.
It's a common sight now.
Physiology.
And it puts a smile on your face just seeing it.
Every time you see it, you just feel good. Yeah,
that's why stock in good humor is going up.
Whoever you want to believe it, or whatever you believe it. I kind of believe it a little bit, to be honest.
So for folks who haven't seen it, this is a vintage truck. It's a 60s Ford, correct?
So amazing.
67 Ford, yeah.
60 and completely restored. Looks like it was just built last week.
The gentleman who
system
Backus and I, we flew out to Chicago, Illinois.
Bring it.
We rented a car. We went to the guy's home. We looked at it. Within 10 minutes, I made a deal. We came back to the airport, got back on a plane. We were home the same day.
We need space. We need a warehouse.
Kind of worked out. Then I just hired a transporter to bring it to me. And,
it's like I go.
we checked it all over. It runs well. And no heat in it.
Let's put it in there.
you know,
kind of
could
like
be
bone
kind of
marrow.
cool
By
out
the way,
there
I'm always
sometimes.
amazed
But
at how bone marrow.
I'm having a ball with it, really.
Good
for you.
The majority of your cells.
Now, when you bought the truck, did
your blood cells, I should say.
outfit come with it, or did you get that separate?
No, everything came with it. I mean, this gentleman, he had he had 3 hats.
I got an
He had
idea.
two
Like,
two
how about the middle of
outfits.
the bones? There's
He had the change purse, the belt. He had the sign that you put outside. You know,
So these
caution,
meals have
like children
layers
in play. All that stuff came with
One
it.
is it has a role in
the
what's
whole
called
kit.
stress
Creamsicles
hormone,
too?
referred to as cortisol.
Did it come with creamsicles?
The other one is the layer
what?
that has to
Did
do
it come with
regulation
creamsicles?
of
No, it didn't. I got
sodium
those
metabolism.
in a good humor. Ice cream
Something called that salt metabolism.
That's great.
And that's
terrific.
hormone.
All right, Bob, thanks for everything.
Okay.
Greatly,
Finally,
greatly,
it has,
greatly appreciate
third
it.
layer, which
Thank
has
you,
to
guys.
do
Have a
with,
good day.
reproductive
I am
system,
seriously going to make a
because
note
of
for the next.
sexual
I mean, the summer reading
hormones,
program takes place on days again where
regulating,
sometimes it's very cold, and
that
we haven't done them in
system as
person
well.
in 2
However, your
years. But
body
the next
kinda
year,
has
next year,
other organs
has to
that
be in
do that
person.
for
I'm going to do it in
you know,
person no matter what.
genitalia, basically.
And
So we're not really
it
gonna
would be
focus
great to
on,
have them parked in the parking lot
that third
outside the
category as
Kingston
much,
Library, and,
because,
when the kids come out,
abnormalities
grab an
of
ice
it
cream.
are-
One more little
are
bit
a
of
little
sugar
more-
before we send them home.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's
You
common.
want the parents to
We give them donuts and cider, and it's like they're all
Boy,
pumped
they're
up
all
anyway.
weird, you know,
They look for the noisiest thing in their goodie bag, and
you know,
that's
someone
that.
can kind of
I'm sure the
be,
parents really appreciate that.
I mentioned the service at
sexual
City Hall
organs.
tomorrow at 11 o'clock, but there's
we're not gonna
another
focus on it. It's
veterans
too complicated.
recognition taking
We're gonna
place,
focus
and it's
on
not
the
limited to
first
city
categories,
residents.
which is the cortisol
Frank Guido at Frank Guido's
and
Little Italy,
aldosterone, which is salt.
every
We're
Veterans
gonna call
Day
salt.
provides
So
a
what is
free
cortisol? It's a
buffet
stress
lunch
hormone. It helps your body to
veterans
reduce stress.
from, anywhere.
What do we
You
mean
don't
by
have to
stress?
be limited to
We
the city of
mean-
Kingston.
Well, I
And
guess
it's
that's kind of an
$25 per
open-ended
person for
discussion,
anyone
but we
else. And I go
just what it
as
sounds
frequently
like.
as
Well,
I
right, we
can.
mean first
And
and foremost kind of
it's
physical
worth the
stress.
$25, first of all, if you're not a
example, an
veteran, as
illness.
I'm not.
I bet it
You know,
is.
if you have
It surely
an illness,
is.
your
And
body will
but
try
it's
to
also just
maintain
such a great
itself. It will help
recognition
you
that
fight
that
this
Frank
illness
does.
by secreting some cortisol.
He
Also,
tries
sometimes of
each year
injury, like a
to
car
make it
accident.
even more exciting
but there is a
and
role for
more
emotional
interesting
stress,
for the
and people
veterans.
kinda
But
get into kind
he
of
continues to do
the
that sort of
science
community
and
activity.
kind of,
We have so many
what we might
people
call
like that
alternative,
in places that we
components
live
of
that
medicine.
we're
We'll
very
talk
fortunate in
about,
that regard. So
Frank's really been a leader in that, and you kind of
stress,
see
emotional
other
stress
restaurants
kind of
starting to
leading to more
follow his lead.
cortisol, and
So
then
veterans
that might
eat for
lead to
Dysings, I think, is doing
undesired effects of too
free
much cortisol.
breakfast for
Which is
veterans
weight gain.
tomorrow. I think it's Dysings.
That's sort of why
I
it
hope
comes
I'm
up
right.
in the alternative press.
So it's free for veterans at Little Italy. I don't know whether you need to make reservations or not, but I wouldn't hurt if you give them a call. And if you're a non-veteran and you just want to go and mingle a little bit with some veterans, as many people do, or just go say thank you, it's a great opportunity, and it's only $25 for the non-veterans. It's a great
John F.
event.
Kennedy, sometime in the
I
early
think Savonis
50s, had
has
a
promotion for veterans
common
as well.
illness.
Yeah,
He
I've
had
seen a lot.
appendicitis.
And I noticed yesterday I was at
When he
two of
went
the
to,
local
have this operated
chain
on,
hardware
this is the
stores, the
1950s,
Lowe's
this
and
is,
Home Depot.
Boston. I mean, we do
And
have
I noticed
a
that
medical
each of
system
them
that's
have
functional at the
veteran
time and
parking.
knows how to treat appendicitis.
And combat veteran,
He
for
actually
wounded
develops,
combat
life-threatening
veterans,
complications
anyone who's been
during
wounded
this
in the
illness,
service,
during the
they have a
surgery,
parking
of low
space
blood
closest to the
pressure,
door, next to the
that has to
handicap
be
parking
treated.
space
It
just to
turns
honor
out
them.
that he
And
had
I
a
think one
problem
of
where
them,
his
maybe
adrenal
both of them,
gland
also give a
had
discount
been
to veterans
eliminated
for every
by
purchase.
an autoimmune
So,
process.
It's about time.
When that
I'm
happens,
glad we're
it's
recognizing
called
people for
Addison's
that.
disease.
So,
Now, a lot of
I
times
just
people
go
don't
back
have
to
enough
elections for a
adrenals,
moment.
So sometimes we call it
Around the
Addison's.
state, there were
basically
5
not having
propositions
enough
on the
adrenal
ballot. In
gland
Ulster
function.
County, there were
But
6. In
John F.
Dutchess
Kennedy
County, there were
basically
6, 7, or 8,
almost
depending on where you
succumbed to
live.
what at the
I
time
think
was a
except
fairly
maybe
routine
8.
illness.
And I think in Sorghitis,
It
you
was
had a
the type
couple
of
as
story
well,
that
right?
really was not advertised or talked
By and
about
large,
because he
propositions
was
did not do well in
ambitious
New York State
politician, and
this
the
year,
idea
but
that
they
you
did
might
well
have
in
a
Ulster
physical
County.
ailment
All but one
would count
got
against you.
approval by
One of
people
the
in Ulster
side
County.
effects
It
of
didn't
this
carry
is
throughout the state. The
Addison's.
only one
Again,
that
that
carried
gets too
statewide was the
complicated, but, the pituitary
constitutional
tries
right to
to,
clean air and water. Some of the the election
on
changes,
the
it puzzles
adrenal
me
glands, which are no longer
that there was
working, and
such
it
a
was
concerted
secreted
effort to
on
deprive
ACTH,
people of the opportunity to vote more
as
conveniently.
a component of it that leads to
surprised me,
bronzing
too.
of
It was,
the skin.
and
So when people kind of
one
look
of
at
them
that
was one
hue
of the only ones that lost in
that
Ulster
John F.
County.
Kennedy had of his skin. It was a little
the
bronzy.
request?
Would you
Yeah, the
agree with
no.
that, Dan?
Let me see.
I never noticed that so much. He just
10-day
has such
registration.
great
10-day
hair.
registration failed in
Yeah.
Ulster County.
He did have great Kennedy
to
hair.
eliminate the
Actually, every now and then I do
automatic waiting
refer
period
to
that's written
you know
into the
when I talk to
Constitution so that
someone
people
about it
can't
as
register to
Kennedy
vote.
hair.
if they miss a deadline.
She had great hair. Anyway, so that's an example, a famous example. Of what
but the other one's the one that would have allowed no excuse absentee voting.
So the reason I wanted to bring this
failed,
up is
unfortunately.
2 reasons. One is which comes
I
up
think
in
we
the
should
late
take another shot at it, and this time
and people
invest as
frequently ask me to
much
have their
in getting
individuals
people to
checked.
understand what it
Read
is as
somewhere or this or whatever.
I guess several million
the other
dollars
reason
was
is I
spent to
had a
confuse
case.
the
I'll tell you
issue
a
and
little bit about the
make
case.
people not understand
The
what it
case
was.
is a woman in her early
I
50s
really don't know
really-
how
she's
anyone
actually
who
feeling
engages
well,
in
except she's
politics
losing
can,
weight.
with a clear
She's
conscience,
lost
do
about
anything
20
that would
pounds.
depress the
25
vote,
pounds.
that would
Again,
keep the vote from
and I talk about this in the
occurring.
show.
We
You
only
always start
had,
with a history and
on
physical.
average,
You always start with interviewing
about
the patient,
40% of the
and then-
registered voters in the parties
and then doing a
participate in the
physical
last
exam to see if
election.
there's any clues.
And I don't know what the unaffiliated
So,
total was,
I
but it
asked
was
her many, many
40% of the
times, okay,
Democrats
you've
and
lost some
40% of the
weight, you otherwise
Republicans in
feel
the
well.
county
Are there any
participated.
problems? Are you having any shortness of
That
breath?
means
Not
that
a smoker.
60% did
And
not.
of course, when someone starts to lose
60%
weight,
did not have their voices heard. So
for
a
reasons that aren't
minority
clear, we worry about the C
of
word.
voters, something around
Cancer.
20%
Cancer,
plus,
Good
decided who's
morning,
going
Ms.
to
Baker.
serve
Good
in our
morning.
local offices. And that
We worry about the C
in
word.
primary elections,
So
the
I
number
ask
is
questions,
even
are you
lower.
having any shortness of breath? Are you
We can
coughing up
expect a
blood?
5,
Lung
maybe
cancer,
10% turnout in a
particularly if you're
primary.
smoker.
This might be
You're a
different
woman.
this year. We
Are
have a
you up to
pretty,
date with your
we
women's
have a
health?
top
You
of the
had a
ticket
recent
primary for
mammogram.
governor. But
in this case, a
still,
woman
those numbers
was
mean that we're
completely
giving up our
up to
rights,
date with
and
her,
and the opportunities that were
preventative
presented in the
gynecologic
ballot
health.
propositions
Are you
this
up to
year would
date
have made it a
with
little bit
pap
easier for
smears?
people to vote.
Pap smears are kind of
A
complicated.
little bit more
The
convenient,
regimen
a
now.
little less
I was just
intrusive,
reading
like
about
how
it,
you have to
this-
tell
this,
them why you
morning
can't
about,
be there on election day is
I
really
didn't
none
know
of
this,
his business.
the pap
There
smear
was
being
a
the first
successful
public health,
campaign to provide misinformation.
measure
because there was a
to prevent
belief
cancer,
that anybody who
but
wanted
via
an
screening,
absentee could automatically
it
just
came about
get
1942,
one. And that's
and
not the
it
case.
was,
You
at
still
the
had to
time,
fill
cervical
out
cancer
the
was the most
absentee
common
request for an
cancer in women.
absentee.
Right.
And that
So,
meant you were an eligible voter.
70 years later,
and
you know,
still had to
phenomenally
return it.
successful.
And I heard the
at
opponents
taking that
discussing,
and making that
and one of the
relatively
commentators
uncommon,
asked
and
one of
now
the
we have a
opponents,
whole year
why
of
all of
HPV
them? Don't some of these make sense? And
which
their
really might
reasoning
make,
was really a little
cervical
bit
cancer a
cynical.
complete thing
It
of
was
the
like,
past.
yeah, some of them make sense, but we don't want
So
to
I was
confuse
talking
the
about this
voters by
patient
telling
and
them to
making
vote
sure
for some of them and
you
not
know, like
others.
doing a
So we just
history,
said
getting
vote
a
against
list of
all
any
of them.
symptoms from her,
And
other than weight
quite
loss.
honestly, the only one that carried the day, I
you know,
think,
she's
was the
over
most
50, and
controversial,
even
and
if
that
she
is
wasn't
putting
over
into
50,
our
I wanted to make sure she
Constitution
was up to
the
date
right
with
to
colon
clean air and
cancer
water,
screening.
which will in turn
And she was.
create the opportunity
And
for
a full
litigation
exam, and other than the fact that the
in a
chart showed that she
proactive
lost
way that
about
right now
25
oftentimes
pounds.
has to be reactive.
Everything was normal in the exam.
It's
She
a
looked
pretty
fine.
remarkable clause
There
that
were no,
goes in there.
abnormally
And I
large
was
lymph
pretty
nodes,
sure we'd have a
things like
pretty
lymphoma
strong
and
public
leukemia,
debate on
which
it, but
cancer
instead we had a
can
public debate
manifest as enlarged lymph
on
nodes
the
in
other
the
measures.
body.
I heard one of the other
her lungs were
hosts
clear, her
on Kingston
abdomen
Community
was
Radio discussing
benign, that we use the term
probably the
benign,
one
no
that was the most
masses.
controversial. That was
Skin
amendments
exam
to the
was
redistricting
unremarkable. That
commission.
would be another
And
consideration.
he starts out by saying, "Oh, that was
So we'll
all
start with
bad,
the
all
basic
bad." Then he
workup.
starts breaking
And I
it
say that a
down
lot,
into
right?
its components,
Basic workup.
and 4 of the 5
Basic
components, he
labs.
said, "Well, those are okay."
A
It was the
CBC,
one component
or
of the
tell you
5
a lot.
components that he was
And if it's
having
normal,
trouble
it
with.
also tells you a lot.
So there wasn't, you know, and
anemia
you know, I
you
talked to
have,
our
some
leader in the
blood.
Democratic Party, and
make sure that some
she
sort of
says
blood
we,
loss is
of
not
course,
a cause
deserve
of
some
that,
of
they
the
call
blame
it
for allowing a monologue to take
just a
place
routine
about those
metabolic
ballot
profile,
propositions
liver,
without really
kidney,
doing a
sugar,
concerted
potassium.
effort to explain the actual meaning of them to the public.
And,
I tried
they
on
were
the
all
air.
normal.
A couple of other places
First time
we did
around, he do
a
a
couple of things
thyroid
in
test.
social
Remember,
media, but we didn't
an
do enough
abnormality
either
of the thyroid
to let
in
the
either
voters know.
direction
And now
might
I
affect
think,
your weight rate. Typically, if someone has an
you know,
underactive
we'll take another
thyroid
shot at
gland,
it, but it will take 2
someone
years,
has an overactive thyroid, they'll
2 or
lose
3
weight.
years. Actually, it will take
Thyroid
2
function
years.
was
That
normal.
resets the clock entirely.
I like to use
The
what's called a
Senate
SED
and Assembly
rate
have to
and
pass it
C-reactive protein.
consecutive
I think I
years,
talk about
and
that a
then it
lot.
goes to the voters.
Consecutive
It's a very
sessions, so
nonspecific test, but
We can pass it in 2022.
If they're normal,
but it can't go on the ballot until 2023 because we have to pass it again when there's a new session of the legislature. And we could conceivably pass it in, between January and June of 2023, and it could appear on the ballot in the fall of 23. But that's the soonest it could go back to the voters. It has to pass 2 consecutive sessions of the legislature and then go to the voters.
Again, all normal.
So,
and after reviewing her tests,
I think that there was, I don't know that the voters were fully aware of what they were voting against.
I kind of sent her for a second round of tests.
Experiencing conversations with voters is they absolutely did not.
Again, without getting too technical,
unfortunately, a number of them responded to a lawn sign they saw.
That's why we're talking about it.
And then there's, I haven't seen these numbers either, and this is a constant problem.
Eat or not, what type
they were on the
stress
back.
you're under.
So a lot of people don't flip it over.
Start the work up
this year because we only had one contested election where I lived.
And fasting cortisol level
aldermanic race. I started with
now
the
where you say, "Oh, we're on."
I made sure I finished them first, and then I flipped over and found the one race where I had to cast a vote that would conceivably have made a difference.
Thankfully, it's not that common, but weight loss would be.
Well, you mentioned it. You just mentioned it.
Cortisol
there were
is
so
like
many
sugar?
voters that
it is
no
a stress
idea
hormone
what those propositions
one
meant,
of which is increase your sugar.
The reasoning behind it.
So it kind of
I know.
Works counter, it's
on
so
the way
complicated,
out
these hormones that kind of work
Center,
against each other. But if
there was a
someone
couple of people that
has
said,
stress on their body,
I wish I had taken the time
it can
prior
manifest in
to,
many ways, one of which
because
is
they were there
raising
for
sugar
a
level.
while
That's why a lot
reading
of
it and trying to figure out what to do.
talk about
If
general wellness. Talk
you
about
hadn't
kind of a
explained it so
low-stress,
eloquently on a
tempting of a
show prior
low-stress
to the
lifestyle,
election,
and that includes emotional.
I probably wouldn't have either.
And physical
they were
stress
pretty
and the diet that
forthright. They were much easier to explain than they were to read. There was I raise this each year when we do anything to approve a ballot proposition, but simplicity in what goes on the ballot is very important. It should be clear, it should be accurate, it should be concise. And when it has a lot of gobbledygook, just expect people to say, if I don't know, the answer is no.
Yeah, right.
So.
I
think that's exactly what happened.
Or therefore they don't.
We'll see what happens next. I think that
anyway,
so what is a normal cortisol level if hers was
we
0?
recognize that the right to vote does not necessarily mean you can't vote. That if we make it difficult to vote for someone, they won't vote. There's a big debate across the river at Bard College where the polling place was on an unlit country road in an area of the county that has had a number of pedestrian car fatalities. And in order for the students to have gone to vote, they would have had to walk down a dark country road without sidewalks. They went to court. They were able to get a polling place put on campus at a place that was actually more convenient for the whole community. And it worked this year, but one of the election commissioners has already indicated that they're going to challenge that designation. If we don't make it convenient to vote, and I'm not saying make it easy, it should be relatively easy in my view, but that's not what I'm suggesting here. If we don't make it convenient to vote for people to be able to go to the polls, even if they have to work from 6 a.m. to some late hour of the day, even if they might be out of town, but they're not sure, and it doesn't necessarily qualify as a reason under the current absentee rules. So what? If it's your right, it's your right. There are enough checks and balances to demonstrate that there won't be fraud, that we should make it a lot easier. And in the history of American politics,